I see how it is now. I am not needed anymore. You guys have gotten bored of me and tossed me to the side. Well, now you have to suffer through monotone, man. This is all your fault. You asked for this. Hey guys.
Big Fish here, coming at you with my first narrated video. Now, before I get into anything, you may be wondering what this video is even about. Well, after doing my Tiersfall guide, a commenter asked me about Silverpine Forest. I had always thought Silverpine was far worse from what I've heard from others, but I decided to put the theory to the test myself. I decided to level up my bank ult from 13 to 20, comparing my time with Joanna's Hunter 13 to 20 speedrun in the Barrens. Keep in mind that Joanna did end up going to Stone Talon Mountains for some quests, but I will let it slide so I don't have to level Barrens only myself. Some of the common criticisms of Silverpine Forest is that there are not enough quests there, and I would have to confirm this is true. I did end up running out of quests to do, and considering for this test I could not leave the zone other than Undercity, I ended up mob grinding. If you wish, you could mix in some Barrens or even an RFC run, but for the sake of this experiment I left them out. I did, however, go to Undercity, as I mentioned, because there's some quests there relevant to Silverpine Forest, and it's not even possible to do half the quests in Silverpine Forest without heading to Undercity. Another thing to note is that I had full rested XP at the start, so my time was greatly accelerated for the first level or so. Although I did make a lot of dumb mistakes causing me to die throughout the run, and I didn't use the most optimal route I could have. I'm sure the times kind of averaged each other out, maybe a bit more in favor from the rested experience, but I guarantee you I could shave off some time if I did the route properly without dying. Now, I did end up looking up a guide and following it loosely, and one mistake I made was I didn't read the guide beforehand, and halfway through it ended up wanting me to go to the Barrens and even Ghostlands, which is a Burning Crusade zone. So the places where it wanted me to quest elsewhere, I just mob grinded through, and actually mob grinding is surprisingly fast in Silverpine Forest. There's a very high density of mobs and there's very few people there considering everyone goes to the Barrens, so mob grinding is actually pretty efficient in Silverpine. Not to mention the fact that you can run right to Terran Mill in Hillsbrad as soon as you're done Silverpine and continue questing there with minimum travel time. Alright, now that the summary is out of the way, let's get started with the route I took. For the sake of this test, I started level 13 in Brill with the quest Delivery to Silverpine. As you can see, my starting playtime is 13 hours, 3 minutes, 51 seconds, which will be used for the final time calculation. Killing while moving between quest objects greatly speeds up your overall leveling speed. Once I got to Pulcher, I picked up every quest in sight, and completed them in the order shown on the map. But remember, Erland is an escort quest, so you may have to wait on his respawn, which is not a big deal considering he's surrounded by wargs you'll need. After I was done with all the quests, I hearthstoned back and returned them all, grabbing any new quests that became available. I then made my way back north. I managed to ding 14 while killing mobs. While doing the quests, I made some
stupid fucking mistakes, man.
Fly, you fools!
which took a toll on my time. At this stage in the questing, I just followed the guide as closely as I could, hitting up the quests in order and making sure they were fully completed before moving on to the next area. Once I was finished up with that quest, I made use of the red sickness mechanic. Keep in mind you can make use of dying and getting red sickness at early levels due to the short time on red sickness, as well as the fact the graveyard is right in the center of Sepulcher. Now, at this point, the guide wanted me to go to the Barrens to get a couple levels and do some quests there. And I understand why it would suggest that, considering Silverpine is lacking in quests. But for the sake of the guide, I decided just to grind mobs all the way up to level 16. If you want to do Ragefire Chasm now, this is where you would do it. Surprisingly though, this only took me around 45 to 55 minutes. I genuinely think this is much faster than going to the Barrens, considering you have to run to the Zeppelin, wait for it, run to Orgrimmar, get the flight pad, and then run all the way to the Crossroads, which would probably take around 30 minutes to do. In that time, you'd almost be level 16 from the mob grinding. I ended up obtaining all the shackles for the Rugal's Folly Part 2 quest because the cave they reside in is densely packed with mobs of your level, providing better XP. I also grabbed the Delaran crate for the same reason as the shackles. This quest is probably the hardest of the lot to do, so make sure you have a ranged weapon and leash the mobs until the other ones are set. Keep in mind they do frostbolt, but you just have to position your character at max range so you don't get caught and killed. I hit level 16 before returning these quests. If you plan on following this guide, then I'd recommend you do so as well. I then killed myself and got red sickness at Sepulture. Once I was in Sepulture, I sold, repaired, returned all the quests, and picked up all the new ones. The usual routine when returning to town. After the chores were done, I flew my way over to the Undercity, returned every single quest. This is where you want to train your new spells. I did not train at level 14, so it's important to train now when you have the chance. Once you're finished up in Undercity, make your way over to Brill, return to Lila's Ring, and Hearthstone back to Sepulture. Once back in Sepulture, I returned to the cave where we got the shackles, and then I killed Grims in the Pale who's in the back of the cave. I then farmed any Delaran NPCs along the way for their shackles. Now the tricky part, getting Berard's journal. It's pretty important to get this quest now because it's a chain. If you're a class that sucks like Warrior, you may need to get help with this one. But as a Warlock, I found a creative way of completing this after dying my first time trying to do it legit. Once I had obtained the journal, I killed myself and got red sickness at Sepulture, returning old quests, and I picked up any new ones. I then made my way over to Fenris Isles. I killed the undead gnolls until the quest was completed and I looted the talking head from them. Luckily it was my first gnoll that dropped it. I returned the talking head quest at the grave on the east side of Fenris Isle Keep. Following this, I grouped up with some players and fought my way through the building, and they ended up getting me killed by the elite boss in here for another quest that's later on down the road. I decided to say fuck these guys and use them to get to the cabinet where the next part of the talking head quest chain is located. Rezzing on the roof made this much easier. Now, after this disgusting gnoll place was dealt with, I began the long grind for moss and tumors. I ended up getting 3/4 of a level just grinding these items needed for the quest. They are quite rare drops, but it is definitely worth doing. Now this part is important. At this point I was 4 bars away from level 18. If you do decide to do this guide, make sure you are 4 bars away before using your Hearthstone to return to Sepulture, as we will be hitting up Undercity and you want to be able to get your level 18 spells. Now, Once I finished all the quests relevant to Finish Isle and I was 4 bars away from level 18, I Hearthstoned back to Sepulcher, I returned everything, and then I flew to Undercity. Once I had arrived in the Undercity, I returned all the quests, which leveled me up to 18. I trained my spells and I flew back to Sepulcher. Now, level 18. This is the last of the easy quests you can do in the zone, so make sure to extract as much XP from mobs as you can while doing this quest. Kill everything that gives XP on your way from quest to quest. Knowing this, I made my way south, did the quests in any order I saw fit as they're close together, so it doesn't really matter too much. The other tricky quest here is Archmage Ateric. There is a group of mobs to the left of the entrance which you will have to kill. Carefully take them down before entering the building. Grouping up trivializes this quest, but if you want to solo it, you'll have to take your time. At this level, Pyrewood Shackles is soloable, but it's much easier doing it with a group. If you plan on grouping up, then I would suggest doing the ambush quest. If you plan on soloing it, ignore the Pyrewood ambush quest. Now, for the last quest I did. Once I got this dude's hand, I was officially out of quests from here on out. Don't bother with the elite guy in Fenrir's Keep like I did, because he is near impossible without a 5-man group, as you can see from my attempts. Head south back to where you were doing the quests, and grind mobs until level 20. Had I had known this from the start, I would not have Hearthstone back to Sepulcher just yet. I would have stayed south and grinded mobs until I was 4 bars away from level 20, and then I would have Hearthstone back to Sepulcher to return the quests. But I did it poorly. Finally, after grinding for an hour with some podcasts on, I made it to level 20, completing the challenge I set for myself. So, the conclusion. My final playtime was 18 hours and 56 minutes. Joanna splits say 13 to 20 was 6 hours and 41 minutes for her. 18 hours 56 minutes minus 13 hours and 4 minutes comes out as 5 hours and 52 minutes. I hit level 20 nearly an hour faster than Joanna's Hunter. I was surprised with this result, honestly. Maybe it is all to do with the Warlock's ability to pull multiple mobs with ease and dot them down. If I were to do this differently, I'd probably test with the Troll Hunter to keep the test more accurate, but I was way too lazy to level a Hunter when my bank ult was already level 10 before preparing the experiment. Also, it's not that big of a deal considering this was made for viewers and not every viewer is going to speedrun a Hunter or Warlock. Overall, considering the low amount of people who go to Silverpine and the high mob density of the zone, it's actually pretty efficient to quest here. On Lightbringer PvP server, there are so many people in the Barrens that questing becomes more of a waiting game, so I actually think that if you do Silverpine this way, it could be a faster route of leveling than the Barrens, especially as an undead to minimize your travel time. After Silverpine, you can head straight to Terran Mill and Hillsbrad to continue on questing. I'm sure if I refined the route more and I didn't die 5+ times, I could have done even better. So overall, Silverpine Forest is not as bad as people make it out to be, as long as you're willing to grind mobs.